God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Let the doors be open, que l'on ouvre les portes. Statements by members. Déclaration de député, the Honourable Member for Brampton Centre. We'll go on to the Honourable Member for Sackville, Preston, Chiswick, Cook.
Mr. Sangha is back online now.
Okay, then we'll. Oh, wait a minute. You know. To the Honourable Member. Okay, one moment. We'll start right from the beginning again. We seem to have had a technical problem. The Honourable Member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I'm unable to hear anything.
Can you hear me?
It would seem that they cannot hear you on Zoom.
Okay. We seem to have a bit of a technical issue.
We do hear you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. So we'll try one more time from the top. The Honourable Member for Brampton Centre. Okay, we'll go to the next in line, then we'll come back to Brampton Centre after. The Honourable Member for Sackville, Preston, Chiswick, Cook, who cannot hear me.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Black History Month continues, I would like to recognize the hard work and resilience of the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia during COVID-19. Led by Russell Gross, the Executive Director, the Centre has been finding innovative ways to continue to work to protect, to preserve, and to promote the history of African Nova Scotian communities. The Centre has been there to lend a hand to other African Nova Scotian-led organizations and help them adjust to COVID-19 and thrive in the digital environment. The Centre is working towards being designated as a national museum, and I'm proud to help them achieve this goal in any way I can. Throughout my time as Member of Parliament for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake, it has been inspiring to see the incredible impact the Centre has had on the African Nova Scotian communities, and I cannot wait to see what they can do in the national scene and see our Prime Minister there to cut the ribbon on opening day. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Huron, Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Huron County lost one of its great residents February 8th. Graham Craig was a lifelong resident on his Century Farm in Walton. His first passion in life was music. Graham entertained many people singing and playing guitar at numerous events. He was a graduate of Ridgetown College and had a very successful career with United Breeders and McKillop Insurance. Graham was a federal returning officer for Huron Bruce for 5 elections. He ran as a Liberal candidate in 1979 and 80 and was trustee and chair on the Huron County Board of Education for 12 years. Graham did a term as a president of the Ontario Plowmen's Association. He was the chair of the 1999 Plowing Match in Dashwood and was the current treasurer in the Canadian Plowing Match. He made a positive impact on everyone he knew. Condolences to Graham's family, wife Helen, Michael, Shannon, and Dave. Rest in peace, Graham, on a life well lived. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, today is I Read Canadian Day. This year, more than ever, we've turned to reading as a way to escape, to learn, and to experience new ideas. I love reading to our 4 grandkids remotely, to Michael and Anna in Guelph, and to Jack and our new granddaughter Frankie in Toronto. Started by Guelph author Eric Walters is a collaboration between the Canadian Children's Book Centre, the Canadian Society of Children's Authors, Illustrators and Performers, and the Ontario Library Association, and this year joined by Communication Jeunesse and Canadian School Libraries, will reach many more readers in both our official languages. Today, we challenge all Canadians to read for 15 minutes, whether it's English, French, or Indigenous languages, to your young ones around you, to show your ongoing support to our wonderfully talented Canadian authors and illustrators. Use the hashtag #IReadCanadian and share in the love of reading Canadian stories. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, we are familiar with the idea that our local media are in a crisis due to the web giants, yet the federal government isn't doing anything. Today, Quebec publishers are asking Ottawa to set right the imbalance between the web giants and local media. We need to do something to support creators. If journalists didn't work so hard, there would be nothing to share on social media. There wouldn't be any Facebook or Google or Twitter. If we lose local media, Mr. Speaker, we will lose a pillar of our civic and democratic life. Ottawa must take action to protect our local media and to make sure that their work ultimately benefits them. Ottawa needs to make the web giants to pay taxes, and they need to take that money and use it for a fund for our media and culture. We must take action, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles. You are on mute. Mr. Speaker, in 1976, I was welcomed to Canada by a pioneer of the Lebanese community, George El-Khoury. 3 weeks ago, we lost him. He was an extraordinary, generous person. He gave so much to Canadians of Lebanese origin. He contributed to growth in jobs and investments with the Middle East. And he also helped various young people with their education. He would help people who needed it, regardless of their faith or their national origin. In fact, it's thanks to him that I was able to register for my first 2 years at university. I would like to offer my most sincere condolences to his wife, Thérèse, his daughters, Sylvana, Denise, and Barbara, and his sons, Maroun and Michel. Rest in peace, Mr. El-Khoury. His life will inspire other Lebanese Canadians.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Member for Brampton Centre.
Yes.
I believe you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a proud Sikh by birth. Like Sikhs in Canada, I'm not a Khalistani extremist or a sympathizer. However, there are few Sikhs in Canada as well as in this House. On December 13, 2018, Minister of Public Safety removed religious Sikh word from the terrorist threat to Canada report 2018, and the Sikh community was grateful. But few unsatisfied Sikh MPs stood against their own government, used all the tools in their with their ulterior motive, and pressurized the government and got removed the Khalistani extremism out of the report. Their hidden agenda was to camouflage all the names from long time linked to the movement, even their own near and dear ones. Security of Canada is a paramount, but they compromised it. Shame on their part to pander extremism in Canada. History will not forgive them. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Honorable député de Charbot-Haute-Saint-Charles. Oh, we have a point of order. The Honourable Member for Scarborough...
Rouge Park.
Rouge Park, yes.
Mr. Speaker, I think the last SO31 is out of line with respect to the decorum that's expected of this House. A number of comments that was made by the previous speaker that clearly impinged on the reputation of many of our members, and I take particular offense to it, and I would like to ask for the record that the SO31 be struck from the records of this House.
Okay, I just want to point out that normally the chair doesn't take points of order during SO31s, but it will be something that we will review and see where it goes from there. L'honorable député de Charlebourg-Haute-Saint.
The honourable member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I recently introduced in the House of Commons Motion M63, which requests the government to recognize the urgency of adopting legislative measures to fight sexual exploitation of minors and better protect our children. In my former role as Shadow Minister for Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, I worked with Quebec elected officials in order to support them in the changes that they were requesting to the criminal code. And I will continue to support Deputy Premier of Quebec, Geneviève Guilbeault, in this matter. I would now ask the federal government to make this a priority so that our youth who are being sexually exploited not end up being simply statistics in a report. It is past time to protect our children.
Avant de continuer,
Before moving on, I would like to remind everyone to make sure you're on mute.
Mic's on mute if you are not speaking. L'honorable député de Gatineau.
The honourable member for Gatineau.
Mr. Speaker, on February 15th, 1965, Canada's red and white maple leaf flag was raised for the very first time on Parliament Hill. On the same day in 1996, National Flag Day of Canada was declared. Monsieur le Président, il y a 56 ans.
Mr. Speaker, 56 years ago, 10,000 spectators enthusiastically applauded while Gaëtan Secours, a young RCMP officer of 26, while Gaëtan Secours raised the new flag of Canada for the first time on Peace Tower on Parliament Hill. In celebration of National Flag of Canada Day and in recognition of Mr. Secours' years of service and to commemorate the inauguration ceremony of the Canadian flag, Mr. Secours will receive the flag that fluttered at the top of Peace Tower on that day.
The part of Mr. Secours' unique history and also those of all Canadians. Our national flag is a symbol that unites us all and reflects the shared values we hold so dear: equality, diversity, and inclusion. Thank you, Mr. Secours. Merci, Monsieur Secours, et bonne journée du drapeau national du Canada.
L'honorable député d'Orléans.
Monsieur le Président,
the honourable member for Orléans.
The petition calling on the federal government to collaborate with the provinces and territories to establish a pan-Canadian action plan to end overdose deaths and overdose injuries. With a death taking place roughly every 2 hours and a death toll of 15,400 people in the last 4 years alone, the opioid crisis is one of the deadliest public health emergencies of our lifetime. Canadians in every corner of our country are affected by this crisis, and it is being made even worse by the ongoing pandemic. The petition was organized by Catherine Steinhoff, an activist with Moms Stop the Arm, and a mother who lost her son Simon to the crisis, and was signed by citizens across the city of Ottawa, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank her for her tireless advocacy for action on this issue. Merci.
The honourable member for South Surrey, White Rocks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Less than 1%. That's how many Canadians have received their second dose of COVID-19 vaccine. 42nd. That's where Canada ranks on the world stage in terms of vaccines administered per capita. This is not the Team Canada I know. This means more loved ones sick and more restrictions keeping us apart. It means more difficulty for the many sectors that continue to struggle. From the White Rock Promenade to the shops at Morgan Crossing, businesses in my riding are hurting. In January, the unemployment rate in BC hit 8%, up 3.4% from a year ago. Access to vaccines would help us all get back to our friends, family, and work. It would help new businesses like the Etc. Breakfast Cafe in Surrey thrive. We need to get the vaccine rollout right in order to secure jobs and secure our economic future. Mr. Speaker, I'll leave you with one final number, 701, the number of days since the last federal budget. Thank you.
The honourable member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take this opportunity to mark the commencement of the Lunar New Year by recognizing the Spring Festival in China, Solal in Korea, and the Tet Festival in Vietnam. Many across our country have been marking the arrival of the Year of the Ox, a symbol of honesty, hard work, and perseverance. Indeed, fitting qualities to guide us all in the year ahead. Lunar New Year, Mr. Speaker, is an opportunity for many Canadians to reflect on the immense and extraordinary challenges of the past year and to focus our gaze on ushering in new beginnings. It's also a time to connect with the elderly, relatives, and friends. On behalf of my riding of Willowdale, Mr. Speaker, I wish all those marking this festive occasion a year filled with good health, but also much happiness and success. While most have graciously avoided gatherings this year, I have no doubt that we will more than make up for it by celebrating bigger and brighter next year. Gong Hei Fat Choi, Gonchi Gonchi, Shinyen Kwai Le, Sehe Bok Mani Pasadeo.
The Honourable Member for Kenora.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the frontline workers across the riding of Kenora and all of Northwestern Ontario who have stepped up to keep us safe during this pandemic. As we approach the one-year mark of COVID-19 lockdowns, we are all greatly appreciative of their work and their sacrifice. They have truly done an amazing job. Unfortunately, the federal government has not done their job to ensure that these workers have the tools they need to combat the virus. Their failure to procure vaccines, distribute rapid tests, and provide clear information has hindered Canada's response to this crisis. As we move into the spring, it is my hope that all Canadians who want a vaccine will have access in a timely manner. It is something that our Conservative team will continue to fight for because we know a robust vaccine plan is key to overcoming COVID-19 once and for all and getting our economy back on track. Mr. Speaker, our mission is to secure vaccines, to secure jobs, and secure our future.
The Honourable Member for Mission Metzke Fraser Canyon.
Mr. Speaker, this government's newest housing program gave $500 million to big cities, but left Canada's small and medium-sized municipalities, nonprofits, and Indigenous governing bodies to compete for the rest. Many of these communities simply lack the capacity to submit an application during normal operations, never mind the current circumstances. A disproportionate numbers of these communities are rural, remote, Indigenous, or all three. There are communities like Lillooet, BC, which put forward an application but had it disqualified. Urban centers should not automatically be first in line for government services. Once vibrant small communities are emptied out as vulnerable people leave their hometowns in search of housing and other supports. We know that housing is an essential component of our economic recovery and necessary to secure our future. Canada's Conservatives have heard and are heeding the calls to improve the national housing strategy. We are focused on increasing affordable rental stock, improving fairness in the mortgage market, and ensuring the current generation is not left behind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
The community continues to march yearly on February 14th to honor the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and to demand action and justice. This year is the 30th anniversary of the Memorial March. It truly shows that the issues faced by Indigenous women and girls are not new, but are part of Canada's colonial history. Issues of housing, food, and income security have all become exponentially more precarious. Systemic racism in the healthcare system is real, and violence against women is on a steep rise. The pandemic is precisely why we need bold, urgent action to implement the calls to justice from the National Inquiry. There is no time to waste. To start implementing safe and affordable housing for all, universal pharmacare and childcare, and culturally aware and trauma-informed support services is just a short list of actions that would make an immediate difference. No more delays, no more inaction, no more stolen sisters. We need justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls now.
L'honorable député de
The Honourable Member for Montarville. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with great sadness that we learn that on the 18th of January, Mr. Yvon Major, mayor of the town of Saint-Julie for more than 10 years, passed away. He started in municipal politics as a councillor in 1984. He became mayor in October 1993. and he remained mayor until 2005. He also became prefect of the County La Jemeraye in 2000. I had the great pleasure, when I first arrived in this house, of knowing him throughout the entirety of his mandate as mayor of Saint-Judy. He was well known as an affable, available, energetic, conscientious, and visionary person. The county regional municipality owes various pieces of progress to him, including rolling bins for recycling and household waste. Thank you very much, Mr. Major. We already miss you. The honorable member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, it has now been 800 days since the two Michaels were detained by the Chinese authorities. They have been languishing behind bars for 800 days, while our Prime Minister keeps saying that it's a priority to set them free. But as we've seen, those are just words. In reality, this Prime Minister seems to be weak and ineffective on various levels in his relations with China. The Conservative Party is asking for action. Action to free our Canadians, as well as to prevent the 2022 Olympic Games from being held in China. Our party is asking that Canada request that the International Olympic Committee move the Games, as Brian Mulroney did in 1985. Just for once, we want this Liberal Prime Minister to show leadership. We want him to stand up and defend human rights. On behalf of Canada, on behalf of Canadians, and on behalf of the two Michaels. The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle.
Mr. Speaker, Black History Month is commemorated in many ways across Canada. This year, in light of the Black Lives Matter movement and the fight against systemic racism, we are seeing a call to action as well. In my riding, Black community leaders joined me in meeting with the Minister of Justice to discuss the issue of police profiling and discrimination, while members of our Youth Council produced an educational video entitled Youth Translate Racism.
In the video, youth from the riding from various different communities talked about racism. Mr. Speaker, I was deeply touched by what they said. Hearing from them gives me hope for a more inclusive world. I would also like to thank once again my colleague for La Salle et Mar Verdun, who took the time to answer questions from representatives of the Table de Concertation de la Communauté Noire de Châteauguay. Thank you.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is out of step with the Biden administration on China. The Prime Minister is out of step with our Five Eyes allies on China. The Prime Minister is even out of step with his own caucus on China. And the experienced Liberal finance chair says that he needs to wake up and smell the roses. Will the Prime Minister wake up and remove Canada from the Asian Infrastructure Bank?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past number of years, we've always been very clear with China where we disagreed on human rights, where we have real concerns about the treatment of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, about the situation in Hong Kong. We've continued to express our concern and demonstrate our solidarity with the two Michaels and expect that they be returned home from arbitrary detention, while at the same time we continue to work with partners around the world on holding China to account and improving opportunities for our workers and businesses across the country and around the world. These are things we will continue to work on, including tomorrow in our virtual G7 meeting.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we lost 213,000 jobs in January, most of them in Ontario and Quebec. That's 213,000 families looking for a paycheck amidst a pandemic. The Prime Minister is funding the Asian Infrastructure Bank, while his Liberal, insider-friendly Canadian Infrastructure Bank has completed 0 projects in Canada. When will the Prime Minister start prioritizing Canadian workers?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a part of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Canada joins countries such as Australia, France, Germany, India, Italy, South Korea, and the UK in promoting growth around the world. But indeed, Mr. Speaker, when the Leader of the Opposition brings up support for workers, let me point out that the Conservative Party has consistently said we've done too much. When we gave 380,000 unique applicants for the sickness benefit the support, where we supported the wage subsidy with over 5 million jobs, over $64 billion in support for workers. We've had Canadians' backs, and we will continue to.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday experts spent hours telling committee about the conflicts of interest, the late planning, and the end run around Canadian manufacturers that defined this government's vaccine plan. By the end of last week, 2 million Americans a day were being vaccinated. We need 2 million Canadians a week to get vaccinated to meet the Prime Minister's vaunted September deadline. Why are Canadians paying the price for this Prime Minister's planning failures?
Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning, we valued the work of scientific and industry experts volunteering their time to ensure sound, evidence-based decisions during the pandemic on the Vaccine Task Force, which has a robust conflict of interest process in place and goes above and beyond the practices of other volunteer external advisory bodies. We have moved forward on procuring vaccines for Canadians. In the coming weeks, we will be receiving millions of vaccines. We're going to hit our March deadlines, and all Canadians will be vaccinated by September.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the talent to produce vaccines does exist in Canada. It's a fact. Unfortunately, the Liberal government ignored Quebec companies like Solstar Pharma, preferred instead a partnership with a Chinese state entity. Why did the government abandon Canadian companies and embrace Chinese state companies instead? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the very beginning, we have been relying on the experts who have provided us with expertise on investments here in Canada to promote the biomanufacturing industry. We have made investments like Medicago in Quebec, just up to $170 million. Covax Pharma, $4.0 million. Another company in Saskatchewan, Vancouver, another company in Ottawa, Precision Nanosystems, Immunovaccine Systems in Dartmouth, and others. We are investing in domestic production. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Prime Minister continues to repeat that there will be many vaccines delivered in March and many others before September. It sounds great, but can the Prime Minister tell us how many Canadians will be vaccinated next week? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased to say that this week we will receive more than 400,000 vaccines from Pfizer. They are arriving in the provinces and territories as we speak. We know that there will be some delays in the vaccine deliveries, but of the 1.2 million vaccines delivered, approximately 90% has been delivered into Canadians' arms by the provinces and territories. We will continue to put the vaccines in the arms of Canadians. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Instead of the federal government, Quebec will invest the money in Laval's Infectious Disease Research Centre for a vaccine that could save lives. It prefers instead giving hundreds of millions of dollars to outside foreign companies. He said he was advised by experts on these decisions. I would like the Prime Minister to tell the House what the committee told him to exclude an international vaccine expert, the University of Laval, the Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'm very pleased to set the record straight for my honourable colleague and say that in February, Mr. Kobinger received a federal subsidy of $1 million for research in the rapid research against coronavirus investments. We are here to invest in science across the country and have been for the past 5 years and since the beginning of the pandemic. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, people are not stupid. They asked for $2 million. They were told no. The Prime Minister is refusing to tell Quebecers what was said to exclude the University of Laval. This will have an impact on health and safety and perhaps even on people's lives. Rather, there are contracts with multinational companies for the delivery of vaccines, but this is a failure. Why is the Prime Minister behaving like a king who has to give accounts to no one and does things in secret? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. We hear the frustration in the voice of the Bloc leader. He sees the federal government investing in Quebecers and investing in Canadians and being present in the lives of people, as we have done from the very beginning. We've been there to support Quebec families, Quebec workers, Quebec researchers and scientists. We will be there for all Canadians, as we have been from the beginning. Yes, to invest in promising science, but also to support families. And my God, the Bloc leader wants to call people stupid because he's so frustrated that we're delivering for Quebecers. The honourable member for Burnaby South. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. New variants of COVID are spreading more rapidly, and this is a bigger threat to people. People are worried it's not time for an election. So today, can the Prime Minister commit to not calling an election during the pandemic, yes or no? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of the pandemic, our priority here in the House and elsewhere in the work that the government does has been to help Canadians, to pass legislation to support Canadian seniors, young people, and that is what we are doing, along with the partnership of many members in the House on all sides. So the reality is that at present we see delays caused by the Conservative Party when it comes to the measures that I know that they want Canadians to get. And we will continue to try to work with the opposition members to deliver for Canadians as long as we can.
Member for Burnaby South.
The Prime Minister told his party to get ready for a spring election. All the while, the new variants of COVID-19 are spreading like wildfire. We've seen the effect of the new variant in Newfoundland and Labrador, where people are getting sick and they're afraid to vote, and it's meant that they've had to delay the election. I have committed that I will not trigger an election while we are fighting this pandemic. Will the Prime Minister commit today in this chamber that he will not call an election while we are fighting this pandemic, yes or no?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know well that in a minority parliament, the government doesn't have the sole power to decide when we go into an election. The opposition members have a role to play, both in providing confidence for the House, but also by being able to function appropriately to deliver the help to Canadians that Canadians so seriously need. We will continue to stay focused on delivering for Canadians, delivering vaccines, over 6 million vaccines by the end of March, tens of millions of vaccines into the spring, and every Canadian vaccinated by September. That is our focus. That's what we'll stay concentrating on.
The honourable member for Carleton.
834,100. That's the number of paychecks that are missing in Canada. It's the number of families sitting teary-eyed around the kitchen table trying to figure out how they're going to fund their future. And while the Deputy Prime Minister has congratulated Conservatives for supporting income programs for those same families, those families need jobs back in order to secure their future. With unemployment a third higher than the G7 average, when will those families have their paychecks back?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, we made a simple and straightforward promise to Canadians that we would have their backs, regardless of how long it took, regardless of what it took. And that's why we delivered the CERB to 8 million Canadians, even while Conservative politicians like the member from Carleton were saying we were doing too much, too fast, and, oh, you shouldn't be helping workers. You got to help businesses faster than workers. Sorry. We were there for Canadians. We continue to be there for Canadians. And we know the best way to get the economy to come roaring back is to create opportunities for Canadians.
The honourable member for Carleton.
What the Prime Minister has just said is false. In fact, his Deputy Prime Minister thanked the Conservatives for supporting that assistance. But it just shows how out of touch he is, that he thinks that families can go on living forever off a measly $2,000 check from the government. They don't have multi-million-dollar trust funds like he does. They want jobs, like workers in other countries where unemployment is significantly lower than it is here. So why is it, Mr. Speaker, that workers abroad get paychecks while ours here at home just get credit card debts?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, among others, the IMF has recognized that Canada's approach to supporting workers, to supporting businesses, to supporting communities through this pandemic has left us better positioned to come roaring back once this pandemic is over. We had to do the things that were necessary to protect Canadians during this pandemic, and as a government, we were there to support those families. We know we're all looking forward to getting back to work right across the country, but the fact is we need to continue to be there to support them while we get through this pandemic, and this government will continue to do so regardless of what the Conservatives say.
The honourable member for Carleton.
What the IMF actually did is cut Canada's growth projection for this year by a third, not to mention that we're falling behind the rest of the world on jobs. In fact, the G7 average is 6%, the US 6.3%, the EU 7.5%, Canada 9.4%. They all have COVID too, but they're getting their jobs back. Isn't it clear that for Canadians to regain their jobs, this Prime Minister will have to lose his?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this crisis demanded targeted, time-limited support to keep people and businesses afloat, and that's exactly what this government chose to do. The IMF report indeed found that Canada's strong and decisive actions at the onset of the pandemic, quote, provided crucial support to the economy and the functioning of financial markets and helped protect lives and livelihoods, and that Canada's strong history of prudent policy-making afforded it the policy space to respond forcefully to the crisis and avert much steeper declines in economic activity and employment. We were there for Canadians. We will continue to support them through this pandemic.
Honourable.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals are looking in every corner of the world to find a supply of vaccines, we could have made one directly here at home at the Laval University's Infectious Disease Research Centre. This is the only Canadian team to have developed an Ebola vaccine, and it made it to the approval stage in just a few short weeks. With crumbs, they developed an effective prototype for animals against COVID-19. Why did the federal government not make vaccine R&D in Canada a priority? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we did invest in Canadian production. We invested in Canadian science, not only during the pandemic, but for the past 5 years since the former Conservative government had underinvested in science. In fact, we had offered and given Mr. Covinger a federal subsidy of $1 million in the beginning of the pandemic for his research, for rapid research on the coronavirus. And we will continue to invest in Canadians. We will continue to deliver for Canadians. The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the reality is that the Prime Minister put his money on China to develop a vaccine instead of supporting local developers. Ultimately, we lost the deal with China. We lost our intellectual property, and the government has wound up behind in negotiations when it came time to make former federal MP Frank Baylis a priority. There was no problem. Is the Prime Minister surprised to be outsmarted by China? The Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we made investments across the country at the same time as we signed contracts with international companies in order to ensure that Canadians would get the vaccine. And our plan is working. And we will have more than 6 million vaccines by the end of March. We will have vaccinated everybody by September of this year. At the same time, we have invested in domestic capacity, be it Medicago in Quebec, Glycovax in Montreal, Variation Biotech in Ottawa, Abcelera in Vancouver, Civimco in Burnaby, Vital Intervac in Saskatchewan. We are here to invest in domestic production as well. The Honourable Member for Shakota-Midi-Lafjord. Mr. Speaker, the government can keep saying as often as it likes that Canada will get 6 million doses of the vaccine by March 31st. It's already behind schedule. 6 million is just a fraction of what we need. People are dying because of mismanagement and a lack of vaccine supply. How many lives will be lost because of this government's incompetence? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in the beginning of December, the members of the Conservative Party were saying that billions of people around the world were going to get vaccinated before Canadian would get their first dose. It's completely false. We have seen, on the contrary, that Canada has been among the first 2 or 3 countries in the world to vaccinate their citizens with vaccines that are safe and effective. We are here to deliver vaccines to Canadians. We are in line to receive 6 million doses by the end of March, as we promised since November, and we will vaccinate everybody by the end of September. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of the pandemic, the government needed to take urgent action. That's why in March all the parties gave the Prime Minister the power to get $2.5 billion to spend on research to develop vaccine development. They gave $1 million to the Laval University team. With that $1 million, they discovered a potential vaccine. They asked for $2 million more to test it. They asked the government this. It's 1/1000th of what was invested in vaccines. 1/1000th, and they said no. Why? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we quickly understood from the very beginning of the pandemic that we had to invest in domestic production and ensure that we updated our facilities, and that's what we did. In fact, we have already taken important measures before the pandemic began. During our first term, we gave Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada the ability to invest in life sciences. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have accelerated our investments significantly by making major investments in production capacity, like in Medicago and the National Research Council in Montreal. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. He didn't have the right sheet. It didn't correspond at all. The Prime Minister refused to invest $2 billion to develop a potential Quebec vaccine. If he had invested in time, perhaps Canada wouldn't be 52nd in the world when it comes to the vaccination rate. If it had invested in time, we wouldn't have to take vaccines that were meant for developing countries. If it had invested in time, it wouldn't have to get down on its knees to ask India for vaccines. Perhaps we would have gotten Quebecers vaccinated last month. The government of Quebec yesterday gave the $2 million. It did the federal government's job. Is he not a little bit embarrassed by the situation? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, our responsibility as a government is to listen to the experts, the scientists, and authorities to make recommendations on the best investments. It is taxpayers' money. Taxpayers are expecting us to make these investments in the best possible way. We have a lot of scientific excellence in this country, but we need to determine which one could most quickly give us a vaccine, who will get to the end. This is what our experts are doing, and we are listening to them, and we trust them in the investments that we have made with the taxpayers' money.
For Portage-Lisker.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister doesn't even pretend to support Canadian energy, and his lackluster approach is proof. 14 states in the U.S. have taken the federal government to court over the XL cancellation. Democrats and Republicans alike have called for the decision to be reversed. But our own Prime Minister, he's silent. He hasn't even bothered to reach out to any of these possible allies. Why is the Prime Minister always mailing it in with zero engagement, zero energy, and zero passion when it comes to protecting Canada's energy security?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have been consistent in our support for Canadian energy workers and for Keystone XL. We continuously advocated for this project to our counterparts in the United States. On my most recent phone call with the President, I raised Keystone XL again. We are disappointed, but we acknowledge the President's decision to fulfill his election campaign promise. We continue to be the single largest supplier of energy to the United States, contributing to U.S. energy security and economic competitiveness. We will continue to work hand in hand with the new administration to ensure we're creating good jobs for Canadians and opportunities for energy for all.
Honourable Member for Portage-Lisker.
Well, the Prime Minister failed miserably on Keystone XL. We expected a little more effort from him on Line 5. After all, there are 30,000 jobs in Ontario and Quebec at stake. So it would be nice if the Prime Minister passionately advocated for them, but it doesn't seem he's going to. No calls to the governors of Michigan or Wisconsin or to the cabinet secretaries responsible for these projects. So what is it? Is the Prime Minister going to actually pick up the phone, or is he going to continue this half-hearted, do-nothing approach to securing Canadian energy jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I understand well that the Conservative Party of Canada has a job to do of throwing random accusations at the government to see what sticks. It's been doing that for the past number of years while we've been busy at work standing up for Canadians against what was at certain times a very difficult American administration. We stood up for jobs on NAFTA. We stood up for aluminum and steel workers. We continue to stand up to protect our supply management. We continue to protect our cultural industries. And now we work hand in hand with a new administration that is serious about tackling climate change and creating good jobs across the continent. We will continue to work with the Americans, and we will take no lessons from the Conservative parties on how to do that.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan and St. Paul.
Just before the holiday season, the Liberals sent out over 440,000 letters to CERB recipients, warning them they may have to repay up to $14,000. This bad news came following the worst economic downturn in nearly a century, so talk about kicking someone when they're down, Mr. Speaker. For months, Conservatives were raising the alarm on poor CERB eligibility communications, but the Liberals ignored the concerns of our constituents and instead told Canadians the upcoming tax season would be tough. Yeah, well, no kidding. How many self-employed Canadians are going bankrupt by this government's failure to face up to the problems with CERB repayments?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
See, here's the situation the Conservatives find themselves in, Mr. Speaker. They, at the same time as they say, oh no, the Liberals have invested too much in Canadians. They've been too much there to support workers, too much there to support seniors, to support youth. We've done far too much in terms of spending on Canadians to get them through this pandemic. But at the same time, they say, oh, you should have done more. You should have done more. You should have done more. They're completely incoherent, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we were guided by a very straightforward principle. Support Canadians as long as possible, as much as necessary, and that's exactly what we've been doing.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the fact remains the Prime Minister is leaving thousands and thousands of Canadians behind. For example, those who aren't eligible for EI are being directed to apply for the new CERB, CRB. However, technical issues at the Canada Revenue Agency are automatically rejecting their applications. A Winnipeg couple with a newborn baby is dealing with this disaster. We've heard the same from a single mother in Vaughan, Ontario. A year into this pandemic, Canadians are being made more and more aware of this Prime Minister's incompetence. Can the Prime Minister provide a date as to when the EI CRB issue will be resolved?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning of this pandemic, we faced unprecedented hardship and situations across the country, and this government stepped up with CERB supports for over 8 million Canadians, with wage subsidies that made a huge difference in businesses across the country, with direct support for small businesses, with investments in shelters and homeless support programs, with investments to fight gender-based violence, which is on the rise in this pandemic. We have been there to support students, to support seniors. We will continue to be there to support people. And yes, as the member points out, there's more to do, and we'll do that too.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, an APTN report showed us that the government knew violence against the Sabega-Nagadi Nation was likely to happen before they launched their moderate livelihood fishery, and yet the Liberals did nothing. They allowed lives to be threatened and only showed concern after these acts of terror took place. This is textbook systemic racism, and Indigenous fishers don't need more symbolic gestures from the Liberals. They need leaders who will keep them safe. Can the Prime Minister tell us why this government stood by when Mi'kmaq fishers needed him to step up?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, we've been working with Indigenous leaders in Nova Scotia and indeed across the country on advancing their rights and on recognizing them, on moving forward on reconciliation, and on supporting them. We deeply condemn and regret the actions of a few in Nova Scotia, and that's why we are there to continue to support and move forward to build a better future for the Mi'kmaq and for everyone across the country.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today our community is mourning another life lost to a fire that broke out in an encampment. This government's failure to uphold the right to affordable, accessible social housing is costing lives. In fact, a PBO report released last week noted that 9,000 Indigenous households are in core housing need and investments are critical. This federal government needs to step up and act now before more lives are lost. Will the Prime Minister commit to making immediate and substantial new investments to address the housing crisis in Winnipeg before more people die?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past years, we have stepped up significantly with a $40 billion national housing strategy, a Housing First program to combat homelessness, supports for people living with addictions, and investments in Indigenous communities, including investments for urban Indigenous peoples facing challenges. We continue to be there. We look forward to continuing to work on rapid housing initiatives, on local municipal initiatives to build more housing. We are there as a partner to support vulnerable Canadians through this difficult time and into the coming years.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, as a family physician, I know gun violence is a public health issue that affects cities and small towns across Canada. Last month alone, there were 3 fatal gang shootings over 3 nights in Vancouver. We must end the gun violence and criminal activity. In 2019, we passed a bill expanding background checks for prospective gun buyers. Last year, we banned arms that were made for soldiers in war. So will the Prime Minister tell this House what next steps the government is taking to end this violence and death?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Member for Vancouver Centre for this important question and for her many years of public health advocacy. While the Conservatives make promises to the gun lobby to weaken gun control, we are taking action to keep Canadians safe. Just yesterday, we introduced legislation that targets gun violence and criminal activity, addresses intimate partner violence, self-harm, and online hate. As the Canadian Doctors for Protection from Guns has declared, this is a comprehensive bill that, if enacted, will save lives.
L'honorable député de Nova.
The Honourable Member for West Nova.
Mr. Speaker, it's been a year since I first raised concerns of the fisheries crisis in West Nova with the Minister of Fisheries, and we all know how bad events played out due to her inaction. Spring fishing is just around the corner, and although the Minister says that she's been holding discussions with stakeholders, no official agreements have yet been made. Will the Prime Minister ask the Minister to take on her responsibility and ensure Indigenous and non-Indigenous fishers in Nova Scotia that they will not have to relive another season of insecurity, fear, and violence?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I thank the member opposite for giving me the opportunity to highlight the extraordinary work Minister of Fisheries is doing in resolving this issue, moving forward on the moderate livelihood for Mi'kmaq fishers and ensuring the commercial fishers in Nova Scotia and in Atlantic Canada continue to benefit from a strong future for their communities as well. We know that this is a situation that has been in place for many decades, but it is time to recognize those rights that have been identified for many years but not fulfilled. This is what we are working on now and hope to resolve soon.
The honourable member for Tobique-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, yet again, we are given more dither, delay, and denial from this Prime Minister. Canadians are realizing more each day that they have yet again walked to the far side of a disappointing decision by entrusting this Liberal government to deal with the challenges of these times. The fact of the matter is that this government has demonstrated a pattern of neglect and lack of communication. The Atlantic fishing crisis is just one example of how this government has failed on numerous occasions to keep stakeholders informed and a part of the process. When will the Prime Minister do his job and look out for the livelihoods of all Canadians, including those in the fishing sectors?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past 5 years, we have demonstrated what a government that is focused on Canadians actually can deliver for Canadians. Whether it was lifting 1 million people out of poverty, whether it was creating 1 million new jobs. These are the kinds of things we worked on. And then the pandemic hit, and we had an opportunity and demonstrated the ability to be there for Canadians. We made a simple promise that we would support Canadians as much as it took, as long as it took to get through this pandemic. That's exactly what we're doing. We're doing it for fishers in the Atlantic. We're doing it for farmers on the prairies. We're doing it for community members in the north. We're doing it for all Canadians.
The honourable member for North Okanagan-Shuswap.
Mr. Speaker, things aren't good on the West Coast either. Canadians that depend on fisheries have been let down by the minister. Investments across all sectors are being shelved because of uncertainty and instability. The minister's rejection of viable, science-based proposals is keeping Canadians off the water. Even Indigenous food, social and ceremonial harvest rates have been undermined by the minister's decisions and failures. When will the Prime Minister direct his minister to start working with the fisheries sector to rebuild fisheries and restore access for all Canadians?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the grandson of a proud Minister of Fisheries and Oceans in this House many years ago, I can tell you that we continue as a government to be deeply committed to supporting fishers right across the country. Whether it's on the West Coast or the East Coast, the work that the Minister of Fisheries is doing with them, not just to solve the challenges of today, but to ensure a vibrant fishery industry for decades to come, given the scientific advancements, given the various climate challenges we're facing. We know there needs to be a strong future for our oceans, and that is something that we're working on hand in hand with communities right across the country.
The honourable member for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, the BC fishing community have expressed that if the Minister of Fisheries continues to ignore sound science, the impact of our angling families will be devastating. Her own department's data shows that many rivers are showing strong returns and 100% closure of the fishery isn't required. From the recent Public Fishery Alliance open letter to the minister, failure to do so reinforces the common view that science-based fisheries management and your mandate letter from the Prime Minister are not guiding your actions. Will the Prime Minister step in now and demand that the minister listen to the concerns of our BC fishing community? Yes or no?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, science and evidence must always underpin the decisions taken by any government. That was something that we knew and we heard very clearly from Canadians when we took over from a Conservative government that used to put policy ahead of science every single time. We base our decisions on science, and that's why we defer to the experts across the country in making recommendations on how to best preserve our fishers and their livelihoods for the present and for decades to come. That's the work we will continue to do with Indigenous fishers, with commercial fishermen, fishers, and indeed with people from coast to coast to coast.
L'honorable député d'Avignon.
The honourable member for Avignon-la-Métis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is gutless when it comes to assault weapons. He has completely abdicated responsibility by creating an optional buyback program, because that's what it really is, an optional program based on an optional ban on assault weapons. The government is relying entirely on the honour system with owners. How can the Prime Minister claim to have banned assault weapons when he's leaving up to 200,000 of them out there in the community? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to be crystal clear. Since last spring, it has been illegal to own or use or sell or purchase or transfer or bequeath assault rifles, military-style weapons all across Canada. That's something we promised and delivered on. Now we are putting in place steps to provide fair compensation to all those who have purchased those weapons legally and can no longer use them because they are now banned. The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamétis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, it's not a ban. It's a suggestion. People are still allowed to have assault weapons. The only thing that's changed is that now they have the option of selling them to the government. Need I remind you, we're not talking about hunting rifles or harassing hunters. We're talking about military-style weapons like the ones used in massacres, like the École Polytechnique shooting. The Prime Minister also promised the families and survivors of École Polytechnique that he would ban assault weapons. Does he realize he's now betraying them? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't like the member to mislead the House and Canadians. We've tried to be crystal clear. It is now illegal to use anywhere in Canada, including in your basement or your backyard, these military-style assault weapons. It's a legal ban. It's an official ban. It is done. Those weapons are banned. Now we're giving people the opportunity, if they've purchased these weapons legally, to sell them back to the government because now they simply cannot be used for any purpose. The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, another Liberal snow job this morning announcing the imminent arrival of, get this, modernization of our two official languages. A document, not legislation, but a document that would protect French. Meanwhile, our leader has been crystal clear on the issue of both official languages and protecting French everywhere in Canada. Our leader has promised to table legislation within 100 days of becoming Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, my question is simple. I hope the Prime Minister will attempt to answer it. When are we going to see the bill to modernize the official languages, which all the stakeholder organizations have been calling for a long time? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, for a number of years, we've been strengthening protections for both official languages all across the country. We will keep up the good work with the modernization of the Official Languages Act. And the Conservatives are suddenly trying to hold themselves out to be the great champions of official languages. Maybe they could answer this. Would they commit today to appoint only judges to the Supreme Court who are capable of speaking French? Yes or no? The Honourable Member for Richmond, Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister only serves up blah, blah, blah. In recent months, the Auditor General, the response was only in English, and there are many senior officials and organizations who can only speak English. And federally regulated workplaces, there are officials who only speak English. There are officials who just don't simply want to speak French. So we're sick and tired of this, Mr. Speaker. We have concrete proposals. We're waiting for the legislation. Can you at least give us a date instead of all the empty rhetoric? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I think we can see that the member opposite is a bit touchy about the question I asked him, because even if he wants to try to portray his party as being serious about protecting French, he cannot show this very basic commitment to choosing only judges for the Supreme Court of Canada who are bilingual. That's a promise we made as a government. The Conservatives simply can't make the same promise. Why do they not want bilingualism in Canada? The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, the last organization of the Official Languages Act was done by Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. After 5 years of inaction and empty rhetoric, the Liberal government has done nothing. When is the Prime Minister going to break from his silence and agree to modernize the Official Languages Act? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are moving forward with our modernization of the Official Languages Act as promised. But in the past 5 years, official languages minority communities have known full well how much we've been there to defend them, how much we've done to defend French and English all across the country. We will continue to do that. But here's another opportunity for the Leader of the Opposition to say yes. He's only going to choose bilingual judges for the Supreme Court to demonstrate his commitment. But unfortunately, he's saying nothing on that subject. He doesn't really want to protect French. He just wants to play petty politics. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charlemagne. Mr. Speaker, earlier this week, I met with representatives of the round table of women's groups in my riding to discuss the huge challenges women are facing and the organizations who have been serving them since the start of the pandemic. Last week, the Minister for Women and Gender Equality and Rural Economic Development announced a new program to support these women and organizations. Can the Prime Minister give us an overview of this recovery plan, the feminist recovery plan? Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Longueuil-Charlemagne for her question. In order for Canada to recover from this pandemic, Canadian women need to be able to live and work in safety. That's why we announced our $100 million Feminist Recovery and Response Fund to support regional and national efforts to end violence against women and girls, to improve the economic security of women and boost the role of women and girls in decision-making. The Honourable Member for Wellington-Halton Hills. Mr. Speaker, the Chinese government is committing genocide against the Uyghurs and violating an international treaty by threatening 300,000 Canadians living in Hong Kong and engaging in other acts of warmongering in the region, particularly the Indo-Pacific region. Given this, is the government going to take a firm stand? Will they, at minimum, refuse to send a representative to the opening ceremony of the 2022 Beijing Olympic Games? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are going to continue to defend with resolve and firmness our interests abroad. Our Olympic athletes build bridges between peoples and nations, and they deserve our support when they take part in international competitions. We will continue to work with the Olympic and Paralympic committees, as well as all sports organizations, to support our athletes in the run-up to the next games, and we will continue to defend and support our values and human rights.
Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, specifically on the issue of genocide, the Prime Minister's excuse is that he says there needs to be another on-the-ground investigation. But if the Prime Minister could see a violent crime through his neighbor's window, I don't think he would just knock at the door and ask to be invited in to investigate. We already have satellite imagery, survivor testimony, numerous expert reports, recognition by the Biden administration, the unanimous statement of the All-Party Subcommittee on International Human Rights, and the public support of numerous Liberal MPs. The victims have spoken. The Prime Minister should believe them. Why the continuing denial?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will always advocate and stand up for human rights around the world. Canada is deeply concerned by reports of human rights violations in China against the Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities. In October, Canada, along with 39 other countries at the UN, expressed its grave concerns regarding the situation in Xinjiang. This is why we've repeatedly called for an international investigation in response to allegations of genocide.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister said the word genocide was a loaded term. 2 secretaries of state knew that, and they said it anyway. Irwin Cotler knew that, and he said it anyway. Many Liberal MPs know that and say it anyway. A 105-page report filed with the UK court describes in detail a campaign of enslavement, torture, rape, enforced sterilization, and persecution. If that's not a genocide, what more evidence does this Prime Minister need?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, Canada is deeply concerned by reports of human rights violations in China against the Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities. We've continued to work with the international community on pushing for better answers, on following up on these reports, and on making determinations around the seriousness of these acts. We recognize that we have many partners who've already identified this as a genocide, and we will continue to work with them and others as we move forward in the right way for Canadians and indeed for people around the world.
The Honourable Member for Moncton Riverview, Dieppe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has stepped up and has taken concrete action to help support and protect Canadians since the very beginning of this pandemic. Canadians are worried about the second wave and the new variants and want to see their loved ones vaccinated as soon as possible. Can the Prime Minister provide an update to this House on our vaccination procurement efforts? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to thank the MP for Moncton Riverview Dieppe for all her hard work. Last week, I was happy to announce that we are now on track to receive 84 million doses of Pfizer and Moderna by the end of September. Enough doses to ensure that every Canadian who wants to get vaccinated has the opportunity to do so. This week, we're on schedule to receive our single largest Pfizer shipment to date. We promised a total of 6 million vaccines by the end of March. That's exactly what we will be delivering.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
The workers at Cesco, a company in Edmonton Strathcona, have been locked out by their employer since June. And instead of negotiating, that same employer was able to access federal dollars through the wage subsidy program to hire scab labor. Last week, these workers were locked out in -40 weather, while scabs collected their paychecks, paid for by this government. I wrote to the Minister of Finance over a month ago, and I have heard nothing back. When will the Liberals fix the wage subsidy program to ensure workers aren't the ones left out in the cold?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, from the very beginning, we knew we needed to step up to be there for Canadians, and that's exactly what we did. Within weeks, we delivered the CERB, and a few weeks later, the wage subsidy to support Canadians right across the country. We did that because all parties worked together to get this legislation through in exceptional circumstances and to be there for Canadians who needed it. Since that moment, we've continued to refine and improve the system to make sure that no Canadians are falling through the cracks, and we continue to know that there are many, many Canadians across the country who continue to need support. We will be there for them. As I said from the beginning, we will be there for Canadians as long as it takes, whatever it takes.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for question period today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons aujourd'hui. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie, a point of order. Inaudible for the interpreter.
J'ai bien commencé, mais vous êtes en sourdine.
We could hear you when you started, but then it was on mute.
Que ça devrait être mieux comme ça.
Merci.
The Honourable Member on a point of order. Thank you very much. After negotiations between the parties, I believe you will find consent for the adoption of the following motion. Given that the interpreters' working conditions have deteriorated since the beginning of the pandemic, which affects their capacity to provide high-quality service in both official languages, which is an essential service for our work, that the House expresses concern for the health and safety of all the interpreters and requests urgently that Public Works and Government Services Canada and the House administration take a precautionary approach to set exposure levels to potentially dangerous sound produced by video conference platforms like Zoom.
Alors que tous ceux qui se
That all those opposed to the honourable members moving the motion, please say nay.
D'accord.
Very well. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those against the motion, please say nay.
Adopté.
So carried.
Député de Belleuil-Chambly.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I believe you will find that if you seek it, there is unanimous consent on the following motion. That this House congratulate Farah Libé, the Montreal engineer who will be coordinating the Ingenuity vessels operations in the Mars mission, which will be reaching Mars tomorrow, to look for traces of microbial life. That this House wishes her the very best in this adventure, which will leave its traces in history. That all those against the honourable members moving the motion, please say nay. Very well. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those against the motion, please say nay.
Adopté.
So carried.
L'honorable député de Drummond.
The honourable member.
The honourable member for Drummond. There has been consultation between the parties, and I believe if you seek it, you will find that there is unanimous consent on the following motion. That the House underscores the important contribution of our media and journalists and recognize that they contribute to democratic debate, that this House recognize the inequity between web giants and our media when it comes to publicity or advertising income on various digital platforms, and that it asks the government to take action urgently in order to create a regulatory system that will ensure that revenues are shared fairly. Thanks to the content and IP of Quebec and Canadian media.
All those opposed to what the honourable motion member is proposing will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will say nay.
Oh, nous avons un non.
We have a nay. We do not have unanimous consent.
Go. Okay, the points of order will be taken after the votes. Okay. Okay, very good. The honourable member for Scarborough Rouge Park is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did bring up this point of order right after the SO 31 made by the member for Brampton Centre. I'd like to, and then at that point you had indicated that it was not the appropriate time. Therefore, I'd like to raise that point of order again and ask that that SO 31 statement be stricken from the records because it impinged on the reputation of many of our members. It was rather inflammatory, and I know that this is a place of debate, but it surpassed any acceptable decorum in a house like this. It directly affected the morale of many members, and frankly, Mr. Speaker, it's language that should never be accepted in this House. And therefore, I'd like to, you may not need to rule on it now, but I would like to ask that you take it under consideration and come back to the House. And I ask that you do strike from the record the SO 31 that was delivered by the member for Brampton Centre.
On that point of order, the honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent.
Mr. Speaker, this is not the part of the member to decide what is right or what is wrong. You have the right to say what you're saying is not correct. Please erase what you have to say. This is your power, not the power of each and every member individually. Ce à quoi nous avons assisté aujourd'hui.
What we heard today was a statement by a member in a time called Standing Order 31. That is a time when members of the House may take a minute of time to express their opinion on a particular subject. There is nothing in the rules that states that a member may not say something that does or has to say something that agrees with government policy. We must preserve this right, Mr. Speaker. The statement made by the member is his statement to make. It is his right, no matter what his words were. If he went too far, it is your duty to call him to order, but not the duty of any member in the House. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, tomorrow morning, no one will be able to speak in this House whatsoever. I want to thank the other members. So, no, we have another point of order. The honourable member for Kingston to the Island.
Speaker, I would just encourage you to take the opportunity to reflect on this, in particular some of the comments raised by the opposition House Leader. There are indeed rules that are set out with regard to SO 31s. I know that at times some of those rules have been stretched. Perhaps this is an opportunity for you to go back, reflect on this, and come back with a ruling to this House. But in regards to his comment about other members not having the ability to raise these points of order. That is absolutely false. It is actually the responsibility of members, when they believe that a procedural error has been made, to call that to the attention of the chair, and that is exactly what we saw happen today.
Good. I want to thank the honourable members for their interventions. I will look into it and take this under advisement and return to the chamber if necessary.
Pursuant to Standing Order 38, it is my duty to inform the House that the questions to be raised tonight at the time of adjournment are as follows.
For Calgary Nose Hill Health, the honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, Foreign Affairs, and the honourable member for Bow River, Veterans Affairs. It being 3:25, pursuant to order made Monday, January 25th, 2021, the House will now proceed to taking of the deferred recorded division on the motion at second reading stage of Bill C-220 under private members' business. Convoquez les députés.
Call in the members.
La liste des députés.
The list of members voting by video conference has now been established for use by the table. The question is the following one.
Seconded by Mr. Viss, moved that Bill C-220, an act to amend the Canada Labour Code, Compassionate Care Leave, be now read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. We will start with the sponsor of the bill, the honourable member for, the honourable clerk.
Videoconference, Mr. General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support this bill.